Gentlemen, welcome to the Manlihood ManCast. I'm your host, Josh Hatcher, and we've just got a handful more interviews for you as we close out Season 6. Season 7 is in the works, and we'll be back with a vengeance. In the meantime, I just want to let you know, if you want to win this amazing knife from Haynes Knives, you can find out more about that at our website at manlihood.com/contests. This is called the Black Pearl. It's a gorgeous knife that was forged just for us to be able to give away on this contest. Travis Haynes at Haynes Knives has done a phenomenal job with this, and it's a gorgeous knife, and we can't wait to put it in your hands. So if you want a chance to win, go to manlihood.com/contests, and you can enter to win it for free, or if you want to buy some extra chances to win, you can do that there as well. The instructions are there. So I'm looking forward to giving this to somebody, so please make sure you check it out. Today's episode, we're going to be talking to Aaron J. Armstrong. He's an entrepreneur and a real estate developer, and he has a great handle on what it means to be a winner. He's got a lot of amazing life experience to talk about, so I'm looking forward to this interview with Aaron.
Aaron, it's great to have you on the show today. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great, Josh. How are you?
I'm doing good. Before we started rolling, you said you just got back from Florida. How was that experience?
Sunny state, man. Oh, it was great. Colder than normal, but I think it's because everybody got hit with that brutal cold front that came through everything. But it's been outstanding. Great state of Florida. Gotta love it. It's always sunshine.
Yeah, that's awesome. I haven't been that far south quite yet, so I spent some time in North Carolina, almost South Carolina, but I was really sick, so I didn't get to enjoy it. So,
yeah, we've got a second property down there, and got a little bit of damage from that Hurricane Ian that came through. So we were working on just kind of finishing up some issues we had from that. But I tell people it wasn't bad enough to feel bad for me. There's people way worse off. It's just enough to be annoying as far as the damage.
I gotcha. So what? Tell me a little bit about the work that you're doing, man, and yourself, and you talk about your properties. Is that kind of a lot of what you do is properties and real estate, or do you have a broader business?
Yeah. So I'm kind of an entrepreneur. I find opportunities where they seem to make sense. I've got some rental properties, as I mentioned, one of them in Florida. I've got a couple rental properties here as well. But what I spend most of my time doing is working with startups and entrepreneurs at my co-working space and incubator called the Venture Project. And the Venture Project was designed, and this is something we can talk about too as it pertains to just what it means to be a man, is having this courage to face some challenges in life. And if there's challenges aren't presented to you, it's about going and finding that need and finding some kind of sense of adventure and pursuing that in such a way. So the word venture means to take on a risk, and the word project means something that's ongoing and has an end to it, so that you can continue to conquer, and continue in that process. So the Venture Project pertains to business issues or something that might be entrepreneurial in nature, or a creative idea or bug or itch, and allowing an environment for people to make that happen. So I have 7,500 square feet of office space where we have different entrepreneurs sub-rent out the offices, desks, and they join memberships. And then my team will allow them will come beside them and help them with different types of marketing projects and research. So that's kind of what I spend most of my time doing, in addition to some properties and other things that I use as more of holding assets.
I gotcha. Yeah, I think it's something that is valuable and important to look at for men, because I know that in today's economy, having a 9-to-5 typically isn't enough, and I know a lot of guys have got to say, you know what, I'm tired of working for the man. I want to work for me. I want to kind of be my own boss or my own king, the own king of my domain. What does that look like for you? Is that what kind of drove you to the place that you're at?
Yeah, I'm a little bit, if you look at like personality types or profiles, I seek risk more than more people, and I'm a lot more competitive than most people. So I understand that. So I'm drawn to chase things and create things. So, my vice is probably defaulted to too aggressive. So the prayer I come back to is for patience. And it's about making sure that I'm spending enough time settling, where I think that 80% of men have the opposite issue, which is they have this propensity to be in the comfort zone and fear taking a risk or stepping out. They use a lot of the family virtues and things like that to mask this ability to go out and do something challenging and take on some type of courageous act. And I think that's more of the problem on a broader sense. It's the opposite of my problem, I think.
Yeah, that does make sense, that masking, using like your job as a provider as an excuse. We have to provide stability and safety, which is true to an extent, but I think we can overdo it to the place where we don't take risks that we should be taking.
Yeah. I mean, we're warriors, right? I mean, we are protectors, and that's really our role. So it's like, how does that look in the world? How does that look as far as deciding a career? What does that look like as far as how you want to build your family and how you want to settle with your family and how you want to continue to protect that family that you have, protect your community, protect your church? I mean, what does that look like for men out there? And it's like, if you aren't, I think, actively seeking courageous adventure and filling a need, I think it's comfort, and comfort's the enemy of progress. So I'd say one of the issues I see with a lot of folks, especially young men out there, is they'll fall into that comfort zone. They have what they need, and they don't have the ambition, drive, or competitive nature to try to do something more. And that's not always required, but that, I think, if you're looking at the general culture, that's something that I think we're missing, is that drive to be more and to seek more.
I know that there's a lot of young men today that, we could say young men, but old boys might be a better description, right? That are living in mom's basement and have never really gone out and started a family or done anything other than gotten really good at video games. What do we say to those guys? Yeah,
that's a great question. There's a handful of people that I meet with on a weekly basis that pop in my office and they ask some questions, and some of them have good intentions. They want to do something more, but they're all over the place. And some of them are the people you're describing. They need to be woken up and do something, but they both have the same problem. And that is that I think our culture has made it extremely easy to see, they've made it popular to find easy solutions to things. And there's a strong amount of young men that want to resist difficult things. So my default answer to your question is find something extremely hard to do. I don't care if it's with your brains or if it's with your body, but find something extremely hard to do and have it with a definitive end in mind and complete that thing. And don't come to me with any ideas. Don't come to me with any dreams or hopes or ambitions until that hard thing is done. You're not allowed to have that creative, unique idea until you've completed something hard. It can be an Ironman. It can be a bodybuilding contest. It can be majoring in astrophysics. It can be getting a PhD in something. I don't care what it is, but something extremely hard with a definitive end in mind. It can be joining the military. It can be becoming a Navy SEAL. I don't care what it is, but it better be the hardest thing you can do, because that forces us to complete something extremely challenging and put a strong amount of discipline, which gives us the order that we need to be allowed to have that creativity. So to the person sitting in the basement, that doesn't sound hard to me. It sounds like what you've been doing is chasing something that's pleasurable and easy your whole life. Stop doing that. Find some kind of hard thing that's in line with your interest, that will be a badge of honor that you have for life after completing it. Something that you can continually hang your hat up on. That's why going to college is a good thing for a lot of people. It's because it's the rest of your life you have this accomplishment you can talk about, and all sorts of competitive athletics and things like that. Find out what that is for you and complete it. And that's, I think, what I'd recommend to that young man.
Did you start out with a hard thing? What was your starting place?
So I was an athlete. So when I was in high school, I was a competitive athlete. I played varsity football, basketball, and track. I got recruited to play football at various universities. I knew that's what I kind of wanted to do. So my hard thing was I got a letter in the mail from West Point, United States Military Academy. And at that time, in 2009, it was ranked the number one school in the country above Harvard, Stanford, Yale, everybody. West Point. And I said, I have an opportunity to play football here. This is something that might be the hardest thing I'll ever do in my life, is try to complete a 4-year experience, 47-month experience at the most premier institution in the country. So I decided to accept that football offer. I went to a year of prep school, and then I started my commitment at West Point United States Military Academy. So when I was 23 years old, I graduated with being challenged in every possible way because of the nature of that curriculum. Challenged in such a way to become a warrior, and challenged in such a way to become a gentleman. And I think, and an academic and a scholar. So that was something that I think after having done it, it was such a light to say, I've taken Calc 2, Physics 2, Chemistry 2. I majored in systems engineering. I've completed boxing with people in my weight class. I've done field exercises during the summer. I've gone to rifle ranges. I've completed all these things that they'll find something that you're not good at and make you do it. And having done that has given me the confidence to face anything else in the world with confidence, with an ability that if I can go through this hard thing, I know I can face other hard things. In fact, I'm not afraid of facing hard things. I'm not afraid of learning something new. After going through rigorous classwork, I'm not afraid to learn something. After going through rigorous physical activity, I'm not afraid to take on a new challenge with my body, because I know what I've been able to do. There was a rumor, I don't know if this is true, but apparently back in the day, Navy SEALs would actually be drowned, where they would hold their breath underwater for a certain time until they pass out. Then they're pulled out of the water, revived, and so on. And they have a clock, so they know exactly how many minutes it takes before they pass out underwater. So if they're ever in a situation, they'll know that they have 3 or 4 minutes or whatever that time is before they're going to go unconscious and die. So that is the same way I look at doing these hard things, is setting up, pushing yourself to the limits so that you know when you go through life that you can always push yourself to limits in that same capacity wherever you go. And that was the hard thing for me, was getting through that academy. And I think it's about finding every couple of years another hard thing to put your hat on.
When you talk about the story of the Navy SEALs there, it makes me think about, like, the idea of pushing to failure, like when you're lifting, you're lifting to the point where you can't lift anymore. And that's
great example.
And like a lot of people have that hard time where they hit the failure and they're like, oh, I failed, and it's like, no, that means that now you know what limit you're trying to get past, what you're trying to beat the next time,
Yeah. Yeah, 100% agree. I mean, that's a great example, is pushing yourself to failure in the weight room, completing your 1 rep max, right? If you fail at a certain weight, you're pretty close to that before you can fail. So if you're ever in a situation where you need to press a certain amount or lift a certain amount, what your range is, what your window of opportunity is. And if we never push ourselves to begin with, you'll never know what that number is, and you'll probably never come close to it. And you'll be extremely surprised at how close or at how far you really can push yourself, because the human body and the human brain and the human mind is so unbelievably adaptable in the nature, and you can push yourself so much further than you really believe you can. So I think that's the message. It's like, what's the hardest thing you think you can push yourself to? And if you're young, you've got time, you've got tons of energy, this is the time to try that kind of stuff.
The limit that I set for myself in my head is always way before the limit of what I can actually do, right? Mm-hmm. So tell me a little bit more on the business end. We talk about that hard thing and that doing hard things. What is that? How does that translate to your business?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of ways it does transfer. I think that entrepreneurship at its very nature is what makes the United States of America unique and great. And it's what makes capitalism thrive. And it's really what allows us to add value with very little barriers to entry to the world. And I think it's something that, as we've seen kind of from the 1950s and on with the rise of corporate America, the corporate America has done a really good job at finding just enough to keep you comfortable, at paying you just enough so that you don't quit, giving you just enough work-life balance so that it's tough to walk away from this. And it's really a bribe. And I think that there is a need for more entrepreneurship to attack the corporate structure, because that's where you're going to start to see these issues like groupthink and the status quo be broken down, is by having a decentralization of talent and pushed into the entrepreneurial sphere. And I want to start debunking these myths that that being an entrepreneur means you're taking an unbelievable amount of risk, or that it's bound to fail, or that you're going to go bankrupt, or all these bizarre myths of what entrepreneurship is, and start to find solutions for people that are relatively low risk, high reward opportunities out in the marketplace. And that's where the venture project team comes in, is we can help you find those asymmetric risk versus reward opportunities where there's disproportionate upside versus downside, or debunking some of these myths that how much you really need to survive, or how much money you can afford to lose, or what your personal situation is, because everybody's situation is extremely different. Everybody's risk tolerance is extremely different. And that's the mission of this venture project. It's to wherever you are in the world. You don't need to go to Hollywood or Wall Street. You can bloom where you are planted. You can find opportunities under your nose. You can sell things to your neighbor that has services or value that they're interested in purchasing from you. And that's kind of where I want to come in with our mission, is let's decentralize the talent and allow new ideas and allow people who are passionate about adding value and finding unique opportunities in the market space to come aboard and actually attack those things and debunk these myths that it's so, disproportionately risky compared to something else.
Yeah, I'm not like anti-corporation entirely, right? I understand like there's a value to the idea of capitalism, and a business grows and then eventually it grows really big. But I think about, like the Superstore, and when it moved into town and all of the mom and pop shops shut down, because instead of adapting and finding a way to compete, or rather to provide something that the big corporate structure can't, they just gave up, and then went to work there. And so you drive downtown and you see all these empty storefronts, and it's like, this is actually a prime opportunity now for this next generation to say, what can I do with this space? What can I do with this idea? And how can I, really, who likes going to show up at the Superstore? Nobody does. So how can you bust that paradigm,
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And, to your point on corporate America, there's actually a strategy that we teach in our programs called the corporatepreneur. And what I've found is that a lot of entrepreneurs that really crush it were disgruntled employees because they saw something in the company that was a serious value add, and just the nature of the bureaucratic nature of being in an organization, that idea might have gotten stomped out, or it wasn't the right time, and they figured out ways to go outside of the company and make that a reality and find a space in the market. But I think a lot of entrepreneurs run into issues where they fall in love with their idea without thinking about what the market's excited about. They like their idea, but the market doesn't care how you like your idea. The market has plenty of needs out there. So if you can divorce yourself from your own ideas and put yourself into the position of your consumers and your potential clients and customers, it becomes a lot easier to see those value adds. So with the Superstore small business example, I know a lot of small businesses that have come up and down Main Street right here that fall apart because they fall in love with a certain kind of design they like, or a certain type of clothing, or a certain type of restaurant, or whatever it happens to be, without really thinking about what the market's interested in. And if you could start from a place of where is the problem, and how do I provide a solution, and am I excited about that solution, is the third question, not the first. So you find the problem, you identify a solution, and then you decide if you're excited about the solution. And you repeat that process until you find a solution you're excited about, and then you go start your business. And I think that's where a lot of folks run into issues that I run into, is they're like, I just can't understand why like my app isn't working. I'm like, because I Googled 3 or 4 other apps that do this better, you're not going to get any traction. Or because I found, that nobody wants to pay for something like this because it's not a value add to what they're doing. You're just excited about this idea. So divorce yourself from your excitement, identify the problem first, identify the solution, and then decide later if that's a solution that you're excited about.
Yeah, I think that's the most important thing, and it really kind of highlights something that I say a lot about what it means to be a man, what it means to be a leader, is that your job is serving other people. It always is. It doesn't matter what your job is. Your job is serving. And, if you're starting a business and you're doing that and your job is to get rich, if that's what you think your job is, then you've got the entire wrong perspective. And then you're going to be disappointed and it's not going to work.
Yeah. Yeah, we're in a men's ministry group that meets once a week, and our definition of a man is not to steal your thunder for your question, but our definition for a man is someone that does a cause regardless of effect. In other words, what that really means is someone that is able to put aside short-term consequences or short-term gratification for long-term wise decision making, wiser long-term solutions versus just the short-term immediate pleasures. And what that really is describing is a sense of maturity, because a wise person or a wise man is able to discern from what is just a short-term gain versus the long-term play, something that might be more higher, more a moral high ground that also has practical benefits and realizable gains. And that's really what we mean when we say, a man is someone that does the cause regardless of effect. They're not looking at these short-term solutions. They're not looking at immediate pleasures. They're looking at some kind of moral positioning in every decision that's made. Everything else is really just what a boy does. I'm just chasing money because I want to make more money. Where it's like, well, if I'm doing something that I think is solving a problem and it's valuable, money will show up, but that's not my motive. My motive is I just want to solve this problem and serve something. And it's not about serving what I want to serve. It's about finding what needs to be served and filling that need, which might be uncomfortable. It might require discipline. It might require a lot of persistence. It might require extreme reliability and a ton of energy. And those are all things that men do, that men can face those challenges, that men can they can persist through adversity, conflict, and discomfort, and fulfill the need because that's the right thing to do. And that's I think how entrepreneurship also works in that same way.
That's a very countercultural idea right now. I think people are not ready for that.
I mean, it's not a sexy product to sell, right? I mean, it's a difficult product to sell. The sexy product is get it now, right? Get rich quick. The sexy product is here's a pill to lose weight. The sexy product here's a job where you don't have to work. These are all. I want a remote job where I'm making 6 figures and I don't do anything all day and I can just play with my cat. Like, yeah, those are way sexier products to sell. The fact is, though, that's going to have no fulfillment short term. The fact is you're not creating any value. You're not creating any meaning. You're not taking on any responsibility. And you're just sitting in this artificially engineered dopamine circuit that's producing nothing. Is that a way to live? Absolutely not. The way to live is to take responsibility, have discipline, do hard things, complete hard things, finish hard things with results, live on the value of those results, ride those, surf those waves of results for a little ways, and then start something up again and continue that process. And that's really what it means to be a man in business. But it's the same thing with every type of decision that's made. So what's the harder right versus the easier wrong?
Aaron, tell me about
counterculture, though, man. Yeah, counterculture for sure.
It is absolutely to say, because that's not the messaging that's thrown into our face all day long, And sometimes I wonder,
what do you think is the messaging that culture would be pushing right now?
I think culture is saying to us, consume, take, get. It's not give. It's not serve. It's all about making ourselves more comfortable, more gratified, more,
immediately, everything instant, right?
And you deserve it. Oh, that's the nonsense, dude. That's the one that always gets me.
Yeah.
I deserve this. I deserve to be happy. No, that's baloney.
Yeah, you deserve it after you've earned it. I think that's reasonable and fair. Is that like once I've completed the hard thing, I should have some kind of fruits of my labor if it was a wise, hard thing to do. But it's when you don't deserve anything. Nothing should be gifted to you. You earn the fruit. You sow, you reap what you sow. I think it's just, and that we've lost that the thing that was relatively common sense was that you would work and then you would produce. Now it's just like, well, I should just get. And I don't understand why that. I mean, I understand that that's popular and that's exciting and that's a sexy product to take, but I don't understand how people think that that's possible and real. And it's disappointing because we're losing a generation of masculinity due to things like that, due to this, like, you deserve it. You deserve something for nothing. I think that's the wrong message. I think that's not only on the face of it is that the wrong message, but I think it's going to cause people to lose sight of how we find happiness and fulfillment. We are designed to achieve things. We are designed, Tony Robbins says that this key to happiness is the science of achievement and the art of fulfillment. There's tasks and things that need to be done that you can achieve. And then there's a fulfillment and gratitude. It's about recognizing those results and having moments of periodic gratitude to realize your placement of what you've achieved. And if we have no achievement in that, I think we're lost.
Yeah, 100%. That's a great quote by Tony Robbins. Yeah, Tony Robbins has great quotes. They're better to read than to listen to because his voice is all gravelly from yelling all the time.
Yeah, yelling for 60 years.
Oh, so are you a family man? Do you have wife, kids?
Yeah, I got a wife. I got a little 19-month-old right now, and then another one on the way in a month.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Irish twins right there.
Yeah, that's the goal. I'm just going to crank them out, man.
That's awesome. We had twins on our 1-year wedding anniversary, and now they've both got kids of their own. So don't blink because It goes fast, dude. It goes really fast.
Wow. Yeah, I can't imagine that yet. But I'd be excited to see her grandfather.
Yes. Yeah, and that's so much better than being a dad. Being a dad was great, but it was like, yeah, it's also hard. So now I get to reap the benefits of all of the hard work that I put into them, and it's great.
Yeah. Well, congrats. That's awesome, man.
Yeah, congrats on your young ones too, man. That's an awesome experience. So 19 months is the age. How are you teaching him some of these things? Are you teaching him to do any hard things yet? Yeah,
I think it's about time where he's starting to develop a little bit, right? Where he can you can start to reason with him, I should say. He's beginning that kind of toddler phase. One thing that one of my friends said, and obviously a controversial statement, but I don't care, is, mothers raise boys and fathers raise men. And I think that's extremely important. It's not saying that, a person can't end up fine from a single mother or anything like that, but it's just saying that there's an ideal situation to make sure that you're setting your children up for the best. And I think that the father's role for young boys is to turn them into men and show them, these different channels of aggression, show them how to control the inner beast that they have. And if they don't have enough of a beast there, to wake them up and show some level of assertive nature so that they can compete in a very competitive world. And that's how I've been trying to translate that to a 19-month-old kid has been a fun challenge. But I mean, one of the things is whenever he cries or falls down or something like that, or stubs his toe, he never cries daddy. He cries mommy, because he knows that if he comes to daddy, I'm going to say, get up, you're fine. You fell down. It's like there's a very different response that I have to that type of thing. And that's just little things like that I'm starting to do, is to show him the difference between when you're hurt, what is an acceptable time to cry, when is an acceptable time to do something. Pain is not necessarily the best time to cry. Crying is for grieving and for mourning. But pain, that doesn't solve the problem. Stress, that's not time to cry. crying, that's, if I was a leader of a large organization and I broke down and started crying when something was stressful, that is not necessarily the best solution, if ever a good solution. The best solution for crying is for grieving. So like, there's this like, talk about counterculture. We're like, oh, it's okay to cry. Everybody, men, it's okay to cry. It's like, yeah, it's okay to cry when you're grieving. It's really not that good of a solution when you're stressed out. That doesn't solve any problem. It's not really that good of a solution when you break a fingernail and start crying. That's not what men do. Men solve problems. So I'm trying to put some of that in my son's mind. And slowly but surely we'll start to discipline him when things are wrong. There's this like cultural movement with children right now where, toddlers especially, it's just an expression of their feelings, and you're supposed to just kind of let them have this moment to express themselves. And I, as a Christian man, take the position that we are born from a position of sin, and it's our role as parents to start to correct that nature, because they're going to fall into their natural tendencies. And disciplining at 19 months is 100. It's been around forever until the last like 3 years, and it's worked. I was spanked as a kid. I turned out okay. I mean, these are things that I think we're going to start to implement as parents.
Yeah. Yeah.
Call me again in 20 years and we'll see how it worked out.
Yeah. If I look back on when I was, parenting 19-month-olds and all the things that I thought I knew, and then, looking back, I'm like, I probably should have spanked them a little less or maybe a little more. I'm not sure, but they turned out all right. They didn't die. I used to tell my kids this when they were old enough to understand it. I'd say, I'm going to do the best I can, and I'll let therapy sort you out later. And they didn't get the joke until now that they're in therapy. They're like, oh, now I get it.
Yeah, now I get it. Yeah, I don't have it figured out, but I mean, I'm going to do my best, and I've got good resources and tools at my fingertips that I'm going to work on.
I remember telling my kids, my boys and my girls, when they were little, is it's okay to cry. It's not okay to scream and yell.
Yeah.
Like if you're sad, go ahead and cry, but you don't need to scream and yell and make all that noise. And, I'm sure that that's probably why they're in therapy now, but they're fine.
Well, God bless you, man. I mean, having a bunch of kids it's not easy for anybody, and no one's got a textbook that's got it figured out. So
what's your favorite part so far
of being a parent? It's really an interesting experience. From if somebody's listening and doesn't have a kid, it completes. For example, I'll give you an example. Like, one thing I've noticed when people say that, like, it kind of completes you as a person, what I've noticed is that, like, it's caused me to reflect a lot more on my childhood that I never would have done without a kid. And it's caused me to reflect on memories from, when I was 2 or 3 years old that I never would have thought about before. So you kind of almost have like a second chance of reliving your childhood, whether that's good or bad for some people. And that's been kind of a cool thing. And I think it does create like a whole new experience, because personally, I feel a lot more vulnerable now. There's these natural, this love you have for your kid, and it's kind of terrifying, because it's like, now you got this kid that you got to care for and do all these things for, and it's like it makes it so much more real that, like, if I died or if he dies or something like that, it's just like, this is just such a more devastating experience. So, like, you're so much more vulnerable. But on the flip side of that is, it's just like, it's unbelievable to see somebody that looks like you, that starts to have these different personality characteristics that's like you. And at 5 months, when I walk in the door, he started smiling, when he'd say, and then now he says, Dad, and he's just super excited to see me all the time. And that's really a special experience. So I'd encourage young men that are in that boat, that, like, I don't maybe pause on having kids. It's just back to the thing, like, you're just not used to doing hard things. Like, having a kid is hard, but if you're used to doing hard things, it's not any different. It's just another thing you're doing. And I think too many people want the comfort of not having a kid. They'd rather have a dog that you could throw in the trunk of the car and let them out. They'll jump in all over you and be excited. And it's like, I think you're just being a coward if you're going to be that way.
That's what I do with my kids. So no.
That's why they're in therapy, probably, right?
No, yeah, man. And like I remember that question a lot because we started shortly after we got married. We're like, why wait? Everybody says, well, wait till you're ready. You are never going to be ready. I mean, I understand if I could go back, it would have been nice to be more financially secure when I had my kids. There was a lot of hardship that we went through that would have been nicer to have a little cushion. I understand that, but the bottom line is you're never going to be able to afford it, and you're never going to be ready for it. So don't let that be the thing that stops you from doing it.
I think too, like, it makes me more productive because of it. So like, I'm able to make more money because I have a kid, and I know that I want to have a more comfortable life for him. Right. So like, that's something I've noticed. It gives me more of a motivation so it's like, okay, if let's say you're like, oh, I can't really afford kids right now. It's like, well, have the kid and it'll push you to make more money. You'll start doing more things. You'll start taking on those challenges we talked about. You'll start, looking at improving your income. You'll start having the hard conversations with your boss. You'll start looking for other jobs because you're going to want to grow, and you're going to have a family. You're going to have a yard. You're going to want to have your picket fence, your golden retriever, and all those things that come with building a family. And it's going to make you more manly because you're going to be looking for, how do I provide for these folks?
Awesome. That's a great concept to think about. Like, that's actually what propels you. Yeah. So I like to ask all my guests a few questions, and I think you're going to have some good responses here.
I hope so.
First question is, what does it take to be a man?
So a little bit. So I guess we'll piggyback on kind of what I said earlier. So like, being able to do a cause regardless of effect. I think it's going to be about understanding your natural propensity to want to do the easier thing in the short term, to want to chase short-term pleasures, whether that's sleeping around with women, whether that's chasing money, whether that's all these types of things that we're naturally inclined to do because it's the nature of our biology as men, assuming that, you have the male genitalia and that you're over 18 years old, which is the basic definition of a man, which I should put out there because our culture decides that that's not what a man is anymore. But I am of the position that that's the beginning of what a man is. And you become a true man, not a boy, when you are able to recognize that fault in our nature, that we are programmed to chase short-term pleasure in expense of long-term gain, and we can reverse those things. It's the beginning of when we become a man. And the reversal of that is when I start looking at long-term success. When I'm able to sit and work on my business for 2 to 3 years without taking a penny, when I'm able to, work 6 to 12 months in the gym before I can see my body transform, when I'm able to resist the temptation to sleep around with women and get married and have a lovely relationship with my wife and have a child that might be difficult, but the value and the life that I've brought to the world is significantly better. All those long-term benefits is what makes us a man. And when we package that up, we're talking really about maturity and responsibility. So I think that's what it takes to become a man, is to have that maturity to look at long-term vision and what our actions are today from a moral high ground and implementing that.
That moral high ground. I mean, I know we both would identify as Christians, and we kind of have a moral system prepackaged in our belief system. But what do you think are some of those moral imperatives that maybe, even if someone isn't a Christian, that they might be able to identify with and apply?
Well, so I think a lot of people, Christian or not, they share, even like in the Stoic philosophy, the idea around wisdom. has been a central value, I think, to masculinity. In the Proverbs, we have the verse of, the value of a young man is his strength, and the value of an old man is his wisdom, or something along those lines. And that's something that I think even most Stoics would agree with. I think that's something that a lot of other religions would share as well, is this idea of wisdom. And we talk about what wisdom is. It's about taking the knowledge that you have and being able to look at it in kind of a timeline, and being able to apply knowledge in an appropriate time. And I think that's something that people can look at. So if you don't ascribe to the Christian worldview, I think that most people, I think, that are of moral nature would agree with most of the principal tenets of the Christian worldview, which is, having this counterculture idea of love. Jesus' Sermon on the Mount is to love your enemy as you love yourself. That's really a counterintuitive perspective. And if you look at what maybe a masculine role is in the movies, it's not necessarily that. It's not like, someone that's the Arnold and Stallone movies of the 80s, or you're blowing up in body counts in the films, but it's this ability to go against your inclination to hate, or to have wrath towards somebody, or vengeance, and to fulfill that with love. Those are all things that I think our culture today would probably agree with, and that's something that I would encourage people to agree with as well.
Excellent answer. So. Yeah. Let's say you are able to suspend the laws of space and time and have an interaction with 10-year-old Aaron. What do you want to tell him?
I think that there's a lot of things I did right, and there's a lot of things that I did wrong. And I think that I would tell him that the ambition, the drive, the competitive nature, being involved in sports, listening to your coaches, being a good student, all those kind of common things you get were fantastic pieces of advice for me. Where I think I went wrong was that in the effort of breaking from normal to above average, I took some different risks, and that's where I think I made mistakes. So I was very good at doing the right thing to the status quo, but to be great was harder. So I took these risks, and I think part of it was temperament, which I could work on. And I think the other thing would be to take a moral high ground more frequently. I wish I could have matured even earlier, where I could start to say I would do things that were just for fun. I would seek funny things over anything else. Kind of removing that position, said there's plenty of joy and fun in other opportunities that aren't at the expense of others. And I think that it'd be more of a temperament discussion, and how do you want to, what does it mean to kind of mature? And I think that's kind of the advice I'd probably give myself. And then there's a handful of business advice I'd probably give myself too. Get started earlier.
Buy Amazon when it's like $1 a share.
Yeah, right. Yeah, give some stock advice and stuff like that. But yeah, but being entrepreneurial would have saved me some time earlier probably. But I wasn't really ready to do anything yet. I needed some of those experiences in my early 20s to kind of mature.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, sometimes the things that we learn and what we know now, and the reason that we're good at what we do now, is because of the failures and the mistakes and the struggle we had to go through when we were young and dumb.
Yeah. I think I spent way too much time chasing girls around that I wish I could have taken back. If I knew what I knew now, I know that women are much more attracted to men that have their lives put together than just the funny guy or whatever it happens to be. So I think that my goal would be to build something, create things, and allow the women to find you. Don't go find them. And that would be probably some advice, because I waste a lot of time in high school and college just chasing girls around.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like trying to fill a hole that is not ready to be filled yet,
Yeah. And you don't think that way when you're 12 or 13. You think you got to have a girlfriend, you got to marry your high school sweetheart or whatever. That was kind of stupid.
Yeah.
You're only going to get better options as you get more mature. and have more goals and things figured out. Because women are attracted to men that have goals and things figured out.
And you miss out on a lot of good friendships because all you're doing is complicating it with, romantic emotions.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that would be some great advice I think I give myself too.
That's good advice for me too, if I could visit little Josh.
Little Josh.
Oh.
Maybe be your rapper name, Little Josh.
There we go. It'd be funny because I'm not little, so.
Big Fat Joe or Little Joe or whatever it is.
So my next question for you, and I know you've talked a lot about what may be your advice, unless you've got other, but what is your best advice for the men that are listening today?
I'd really encourage people to have some kind of cadence to really challenge yourself. So I talked about doing something really hard. Have like maybe not every year, but like every 3 years, have like some ridiculous goal that's like something within reach, but something that you can like hang your hat on. So for example, I got it in my head that I'm going to do a half Ironman this year, which I didn't tell anybody until I did at least 6 weeks of training so that I knew that it was like within reach. And I'm not an endurance athlete by any stretch of the imagination. I agree. I did, advanced weight training my whole life. So it's like, I knew it was something hard enough but I could always like have a medal, have a t-shirt, have a picture at the finish line, the rest of my life of something like that. And that was kind of my, like, you get out of your comfort zone. I saw my fitness world slacking in my 30s, my metabolism slowing down, all this stuff. So I'm like, how do I get out of my comfort zone? I encourage other men to find what that thing is. If it's going back to school, if it's going to school, if it's starting a business or just doing something really hard, having a kid, just pick something that's really difficult and do that, because those are the things that add the most value, I think, to our world. Or the hard things are the things that give us the most joy at the end. And I think that if we can get in habits of doing that every couple of years, you're going to have more cool things to do, more cool stories to tell, and you're going to have more things that you've accomplished, more opportunities. So,
that's excellent advice, Aaron. So if the guys want to connect with you and what you're doing, what's the best way for that to happen?
Yeah, if anybody wants to connect, my website is aaronjarmstrong.com. That's AARONJ Armstrong.com. I got all my socials linked there. You can connect with me on Instagram at AaronArmstrong33. You can slide in my DMs. I'm always going to respond. You can shoot me a form, fill out a form on my website. It goes to my email eventually. So any of those things I'd be happy to connect. Just say we connected on Josh's pod, and I'll hang out with you guys. We can jump on a call, whatever you need.
Awesome. Hey, man, I'll make sure to include the link in the show notes as well, so if anybody's watching, they can get plugged in there. So thank you so much, man. I really appreciate the conversation. It's good stuff.
Dude, thanks, Josh. This is great. I appreciate what you're doing. I love this pod, so keep it going. People need this kind of advice, and I appreciate you. Appreciate this opportunity. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, man.
Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to the Manlihood ManCast. Aaron, thank you so much for a great interview. I love hearing from you, and I really appreciate your insights on the world. Guys, if you want to get connected with Aaron, his information is in the show notes, so just click through there and click his link to go check out his website and the podcast and the work that he's doing. And guys, I really appreciate all that you do to help make Manlihood a success. We have reached a milestone. We've hit 500,000 downloads. That's 500,000 plays of our podcast, which is a really, really cool thing. And that is the success that you guys have brought about by listening and sharing. So please, let's keep that up. Give our podcast a rating and a review if you appreciate it. Share it with a friend. If you guys want to join a group of men that are going to help you grow, you can do that at our brotherhood at Manlihood ManCave on Facebook. It's a private Facebook group for you. We'd love to have you there. But guys, I just wanted you to know that I love you and I care about you, and I'll see you next time.